Hello and welcome to another episode of Project 2JZ28. So today, kind of a big day. I'm gonna check in on Blake and see where we're at. Also, I brought my old 8,000 RPM tachometer to put back in the car. So the gauges that I got are from Speed Hut. They're all custom, and they didn't have a 9,000 RPM tach. So I started at 8 and then realized the red line is 8,700 RPM in the Camaro, and so I got a 10,000 RPM tach. Well, I noticed when driving it normally, most of its life lives pretty low, and that's a lot less usage of the tach when you've got just smaller numbers. And looking at the dyno graph and looking at things, the peak RPM for the Camaro is right around 7,800 RPM. So yeah, bringing it at a little over 8 would probably be ideal before it falls down, but realistically it falls off pretty steep there. So if I shift around 8,000, I'm not really losing too much, and I'd rather have that as good usage than the bigger tach. Anyway, it's just preference. So I got two tachs. I'm gonna put the old one in while it's still in there. So all right, so last time we were knee-deep in harness making, and well, where are we at with everything?
We are pretty well done. The entire engine harness is done, interior harness is done. I think we're gonna move a gauge or two around to a different version, and then it should be ready to put the rest of the dash back together.
Oh man, that's exciting. That's exciting. So Blake, you gave me a shout out when you had everything, and so you fired it up. Now normally, as anybody who watches the channel can see, like, it was like at least half of the time I'd crank the thing up and it would hard crank, not want to start. I'd start it again. Then it would fire up maybe with a little bit of gas. Sometimes it would run okay-ish, and sometimes it would just run like crap or not run at all. And when we were really testing things, we saw that ECU temperature just kept going up pretty much consistently with stuff. Every once in a while it wouldn't give issues. When Haltech rebuilt the ECU, they made whatever that fuse was. So what was causing the car to go into whatever mode it was where I couldn't go over 1,800 RPM, they fixed that and I could still drive it, but it still just ran kind of like crap. And when you put the new harness together and tested it out, we saw temperatures like pretty good, right?
Yeah, so when it had the old harness in it, before the ECU went back, we would see temperature climb up above 200 degrees Fahrenheit.
Oh, that's hot.
I mean, that's 212 is boiling water, right? Like that's hot. So it'd climb up above at least 200, and it would do it a couple degrees a minute up to like 160 plus, and then it would slow down a little bit, but it'd still keep creeping up and never come back down.
Right.
And that was with the hood open, 60-degree day.
Yeah, we started thinking like, well, maybe somehow the engine temperatures are getting hot. We put the shielding on it. We thought about relocating everything, but it didn't really make sense, right? Because we had this thing running like great before, and nothing has been altered. There's no like closer to the turbo. We're not getting like hotter temperatures
out of everything. No, it ran for a whole season with zero issues.
Right.
And we didn't have the weird starting. We didn't have all the problems. So it went to Haltech. It went to Haltech. And they pulled out the poly fuses, which I guess they said they don't know, or they don't use anymore in the newer versions of it. I worked with their support people. They're really good. They sent it back. I don't think those had anything to do with anything. But we came back, and problem, maybe it heated up slightly slower, but it was still heating up. So whatever was wrong was still wrong. I know you swapped another ECU in it.
Yeah, Safe had given me one of his ECUs. He wasn't convinced that the ECU was basically repaired or good. So he thought, hey, here's a new ECU, throw that in there, see if that works. I really have a hard time believing, it's not the ECU. But we tried that. Everything stayed the same, if not worse, still ran like crap.
Yeah. So I don't think the ECU getting hot was what made it run like crap. I think the opposite was true. I think the hot was a symptom. So whatever was making it run like crap was related to what was getting it hot. So something somewhere, I went through the entire old harness. I ripped it completely apart. It's fine. Obviously it's not. I mean, something failed in that harness, right? But nothing apparent had a problem. I pinned everything out. It all works. I built the new harness directly based on the map from the old harness. everything functionally is the same. So just much, much fancier bits.
I am absolutely horrible with electrical. So I don't know enough about it to understand. In my mind, I think something obvious like a broken wire, a melted wire, maybe some shielding on one of the wires grounded on something else, something to show like a smoking gun I could see, but I don't know enough about to know like if maybe one wiring pin got thrown off somehow. I don't know.
So for reference for anybody who happens to watch this and be curious, we basically cleared the 5-volt bus as innocent. It only runs a few things. We essentially replaced all those things or tested all those things. All of those other items are still in here. The 5-volt bus was fine. The Haltech ECU does not give 12 volt out to anything other than the drive-by-wire throttle body motor. Everything else 12 volt just comes from the fuse box from the chassis. So it can't be a 12 volt load problem. But the ECU does do a whole bunch of ground switching. So something was likely overdrawing on a ground circuit.
Okay.
That was heating up FETs or something else, MOSFETs or something else in the board. That's almost has to be what it was because we cleared everything else. What or how? Nothing makes sense. The engine was well grounded. We added extra grounds. Those are still the grounds that are there.
Yeah.
I don't. Like I said, I don't have a good explanation other than something was wrong. But that's kind of why we threw this dart, right? Is we went, hey, nothing else makes sense. Let's start with a clean harness that we know is perfect and go from there. So,
right.
So far, so good.
So that's good news. And you sent me some videos of it idling and running, and you said it ran for what, like 30 minutes?
Yeah, about almost 40.
Yeah, and it really... The times even when it would run good, usually a telltale thing would be I'd let it idle for long enough, and it would just probably get the ECU hot and run like crap. And again, like Blake's saying, I don't think the ECU hot is the problem. I think whatever's causing the ECU to get hot was the problem. Anyway... It seems to be good because we're at like what, just over 100 now or so. Yeah,
it's I let it sit with just ignition on at one point before I connected all the engine stuff just to make sure that the ECU did naturally get hot. It stayed at about 105. With the engine running, it sat at about 108. When I revved it a whole bunch, it would creep up to like 110. Not shocking. it's moving drive-by-wire throttle and
sure.
Like there's a little more load. And then as soon as it went back to idle, it would drop back down to 106, 107. That entire 40 minutes, and it's not hot in the garage, but it's 55 degrees out here.
Yeah.
So it's not, we're not sitting in Siberia.
Right,
so.
right. Well, and the other thing is you said it was running smooth and it fired right up.
It did.
It has never really ran super smooth or awesome ever since I got it back from having the engine rebuilt. And it's nothing to do with the engine rebuild, I don't think at all. It just, whatever was in that old harness, I think seems to be most likely the culprit. Now, the only thing is, like, other than idling here, which... Again, I don't want to underestimate it enough. Like sitting here at idle is usually would make it run like crap. So the fact that it's running cool and temperature wise, and it fires right up instead of like fighting me, and then starting, and it's still running smooth after sitting at idle. Those are all magnificent things. It's now winter, so it's not like I can go out and drive the thing very much other than the drive home that I'm going to try and make on not a snowy, salty day here in Indiana. But I think we might be in good shape.
Everything is like we could reproduce those issues 100% of the time sitting at idle before. So far, 0% return of those issues at idle now. So is everything solved? We don't have enough data points to know. But what we do know is what was happening is not happening.
Right.
Was that everything that was wrong? Probably. But until you prove it, you don't know.
So you're telling me there's a chance? Yeah!
So,
yes.
But if you want, we can kind of go around what we did.
Yeah, let's take a look, man.
We can try and start it and make sure that it doesn't make a liar out of me.
Oh, gosh. Just, again, I can't underestimate telling you this enough, but I really, really appreciate just knowing this is in good hands and getting figured out. Just bring me, therapy to my soul, if nothing else, knowing we're finally getting somewhere with it. Oh, and you did, you said you reworked the wiring to the coils also.
Yeah, the coil harness was just ugly compared to the rest of it, so it's a lot tighter now. It's a little bit a little bit further away. It was kind of close to this if it moved right. So now it goes down under the coils. It's a little bit fussy to put in, but you don't do that often. So
right.
I'll trade a little bit of that for a little bit more safety. And then, yeah, everything now is done in Raychem DR25. It's all mil-spec Tefcell wire. Everything was kind of labeled before, but it's labeled a little bit nicer now. I extended a couple things. I moved where a few wires were run. The biggest difference that's probably visible in here, because the harness was designed to be not obvious to begin with, but the ECUs to sit right here.
Right.
And now it's not. It's in the interior. We used to have a great big bundle, probably about 1.5 inches in diameter. This 1/2-inch bundle is what replaces that now.
That's awesome.
So it is a much more compact setup. A few other little changes here and there. Again, nothing dramatic as far as the layout goes, but just a little bit nicer materials everywhere.
And now, as we talked about in the last video, we got the ECU inside the passenger side, like just below the glove box. Is that it?
Yeah, yeah. It's just down it's in the footwell. It's where I think there was an ABS module in that spot originally. I relocated that slightly.
Okay.
The intention here, and I'll turn on the light so you can see. You basically, you can't see. Well, you kind of can't see anyway because it's dark, but it's just hidden in there. Everything's up under the dash. Everything is not visible. So
Perfect. And then I've got my USB cord there to plug into the ECU still. So that is awesome. I can't remember, and I don't even know if I have it here, but is there a plastic panel that goes over that underneath?
There wasn't one when it came.
I think it's at home.
Okay. We'll look and
That's
see.
not that a big deal.
It's tucked tighter than it was before.
Okay.
So if there is one, if it fit before, it should fit now.
Perfect. Well, that is awesome. And one other thing to add with that, I know Sean had brought this up when I was talking to him about him relocating it kind of down, and he's like, man, I know your car doesn't get water often, but even when you wash it, water can kind of go over the hood, kind of go back in there. The last thing I'd want, and I think it happened to Sean at one point in time with one of his cars, is water got down, traced the wires, and can fry everything out. So he's like, just make sure Blake's putting a grommet in. I'm like, man, Blake, for who he is, probably put a grommet in there. But I'll ask, and sure enough, he's got a big old fat, awesome, watertight grommet in there to protect any water. So really thinking of everything ahead of time, which you've done just an amazing job with this car when you really kind of thought about keeping the hot side on the hot side, the cold side on the cold side, and a lot of the way we engineered stuff to be able to work on, and even relabeling the wires, it just the attention to detail and the things that you think about when you're putting a car together like this that makes sense to have it easy to work on and just making sense to keep things safe. That's what really makes a big difference. I know we talked about a couple other things. You said the wiring looked good to the battery.
Yeah,
like loose or something?
One of the terminals, this terminal here, you've got side post adapters. This terminal was a little bit loose.
Oh, okay.
That's all.
All right.
So because you've got top mount lugs and a side mount battery, you've got lug adapters on it, and one's just loose.
Okay.
So,
easy.
and then I've got the main lead disconnected at the moment.
Perfect.
Because this is open and it needs the light on, and
absolutely
batteries are expensive. So.
And then there was just something silly with the boost gauge. I know that before the boost gauge didn't work and even Safe's had an issue. You said there was just like a random pin.
Yeah, the back of the, so I don't have these in the A-pillar right now. Where are we? Right here.
That's the boost gauge.
So the pins in the back, one of the pins inside of this here was bent down slightly.
Oh, okay.
So I just straightened that pin up and everything went back to
perfect.
When the pin was loose, it wasn't getting signal right and it would like max out the gauge. It goes to 0 now. I'm
picky on my gauges, hence why I brought another second tack I bought. It was just kind of ridiculous and excessive. But the car that turned all the way up made 48 pounds of boost. So, you know, I want to be able to see that, recall it, and there's not a lot of gauges. It's these like, you go to like 0 to 100, which is just stupid, or they've got like 30 or some even 40 PSI with a boost. So finding that gauge that looks halfway decent, goes to 50 was a nice find. I really was hoping we could get it fixed so I could use it and I didn't have to go looking for like a different style gauge, but that's really good to hear. And it looks like, yeah, dash is ready to put the tack, and you can see kind of that old tachometer in there. I don't know if this is doing a good job of that 10,000 RPM. Again, it's just excessive. When the car redlines at 8,700, it really is just more info than I need, and then I can't make good use of the info I have because it's just a lot smaller. So I think that 8,000 RPM tack would probably just be better for it. So, but yeah, man.
Yeah, no problem.
It looks awesome. Thank you so much. And then I know we're just pretty much about ready to be done other than just button it up. And then the roads are kind of trash here, and it's really cold here in Indiana. We're at like 18 degrees today is the high. So I'm going to kind of wait for maybe one of those random summer days in winter and just when the roads aren't just crap and trash, and then probably drive it back home when maybe it's just a pinch warmer if we can find a day here soon to get it out of your garage, and then you can enjoy working on your project. So
yeah, sounds good. I think we can hook the battery up and we'll start it up and make sure that it behaves as you expect it.
perfect.
I think that's kind of our last barometer here.
Yeah, sounds great, buddy. Made a hop in?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay.
Should be good to go.
Careful not to make more of a mess of the stuff you got on the floor here.
It's just all the
Oh, gosh.
everything that holds all the things together.
Yes. That. All right. Now, normally for me, this would just not fire up on the first crack at all, so we'll see how she likes this. Hear the fuel pumps going. Oh yeah. A little slow cranking, but still way, way, way better than it was giving me so many more problems before, so pardon my music. Yeah.
Yeah, baby.
I don't want to make us death by carbon dioxide,
Right.
so I'll turn that off. Awesome, man. Well, yeah. She definitely idled a lot better just at the get-go than what I've seen in a while. Usually just runs like crap. Well, anyway, so really, thanks for the latest, dude, and thanks for all the hard work. And I don't want to get overtly excited of how many times we've been trying to get this car straightened out, but I'm kind of excited. You know, it's only January now, and she might be a running good unit now, which is I'll go with it. I'll go with it. So now just work on a couple other little things that we've got going on with it. Throw away for winter. I've got one or two other small things planned for it, and it's cold hibernation winter while we're putting stuff away, and we'll hope when the summer comes its way via spring, we'll be able to crank her up and enjoy it this year. And I plan on making a good year out of it too. So thanks again, buddy. And hey, it's good news. It might actually be running.
Yeah, positive progress.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again next time.